Good evening, good day, and welcome to Channel 977's This Week at the Lake, the news and feature show about people and events of interest to Lake Monticello. I'm your host, Ron Krause, and we're broadcasting today from the High and Muriel Badler studio located in the clubhouse. Well, Fluvanna County's never really had much to offer in the way of business and commercial ratables to offset the tax burden on the homeowner, primarily a forested and agricultural county. And of course, that does become a problem for the residents who have to bear that burden. So there has been much talk about economic development over the years, but what exactly does that mean? How does it come about? Where could it take place? What's needed? Well, to help guide us through the answers to those and other pressing questions, we're delighted to welcome our special guest today. He is Robert Bobby Popowitz, who is Fluvanna County's Director of Development and Community Planning, or a title close to that. Anyway, it's very long, Bobby.
I know.
Mr. Popowitz basically is a very experienced executive in both the public and the private fields. He has been an administrator in both segments of that commercial activity with a resume as long as your arm, embracing administration, strategic planning, contract responsibilities, project management, and a number of situations regarding both consultancy to Port Royal District Supervisor and to a 5-year stint as Assistant General Manager and Project Director at Lake of the Woods. You've heard of them. We're delighted to have Bobby Popowitz with us once again. Bobby, welcome. It's been 2 years and 4 months since you were here. I used almost the same introduction when you were here last, precisely for the reason that it shows, in a way, the more things change, the more they stay the same, yes, but also that economic development does not happen overnight. It's a rather long process, is it not?
That is absolutely true, Ron, and thank you for having me today. A lot of people think that people call up on the phone and poof, there's businesses there, or you can make an entrepreneur come in and set up shop. A lot of times we don't know who's looking at us for those types of things, and so it's important for us to be at least visible to the public and to the folks out there that make some of these decisions, like site recruitment votes and things like that. So yeah, it does take a while, but I think that we're in a good direction now, and I think we're starting down that road where we're going to start seeing some real progress probably in the next year or so.
Mm-hmm. Well, now the main sticking point in so much of this is basically we have been this agricultural forested community with these pockets of development. There is basically limited water and sewer. And most commercial outlets rather need that, don't they? And so at any rate, when you were here last, we were talking basically about, there were some negotiations at the time with Aqua Virginia for a line up to the prime development area at Zion Crossroads. There were some questions, and you had raised, among other people, the feasibility of excess water supply from the Fluvanna Correctional Center along 250. And then there was a lot going on. We're talking with Louisa County at the time. Where do we stand right now with regard to the water sewer situation?
Well, I think, as most people know, we didn't go with the Aqua proposal. There were some hurdles that both parties couldn't overcome, and so we ended up saying, well, thank you, but no thank you. And then, pursuant to having other options that we already put on the table, the board had last year in the budget season funded the opportunity for us to do some water study at Zion Crossroads, what's feasible up there, et cetera. Also, in the same time period, we've been working with Louisa County through the James River Water Authority. There's been some happenings with that. We received a PPEA from 2 groups. The one that JRWA has chosen was the Timmons and group as the engineer, and they are doing a design build, and we're working through that proposal now We're in a stage where we can negotiate some of the pricing and functions that we want in that, and then they'll move on to a final agreement, and that board will have to decide on that, as well as Louisa's board and Fluvanna's board, as to whether to move forward with that project.
That's a water line, again, to refresh the folks' memories, a water line from the James River up the eastern side of Fluvanna County.
That is correct. And that portion of the line, James River Water Authority will only build the portion from the intake to Route 6. There will be a splitter, and then Louisa County will then take that raw water line and build a raw water line up the eastern side of the county to Ferncliff, where they're working on building a plant, a finished water plant. In turn, they will also move that water, I believe, to Lake Anna, and also down to Zion Crossroads area. At that point, we would be able to, per our agreement with Louisa County, purchase finished water at a discounted rate, mainly, I believe, paying for the finishing, the actual cost of finishing, and maybe some overhead that they have. And there's some things that we need to work out, some nuances we need to work out because of them, building the plant and all that. But pretty much a good cadre of different options for us to provide water to that area.
Yeah, that sounds reasonably attractive, actually.
Yes, yes, and we do have an signed agreement with the Department of Corrections for water, and 75,000 gallons a day, and a signed agreement for sewer services for 125,000, 100,000 a day, and then an additional 25,000 a day if we were to need it.
If I recall, when you were here last, you felt that such a capacity as that probably would meet our beginning needs for further commercial development at Zion for at least the startup period of maybe a couple of years.
That is correct. The types of things that we're recruiting for, IT or technology companies, possibly some defense companies that are tied to that, that kind of thing. Possibly some light or advanced manufacturing. They're not big water users. The main water users in any system are usually residents of some sort, believe it or not, because they water their lawns, or they are using water for washing and all those other things. Mainly if you have an office complex with 10 or 15 people in it, they're just using the restrooms and washing their hands for the most part. So you're not using as much water. And with the advent of Louisa and this particular project with JRWA, that gives us the opportunity, once they get those lines down there, to hook on, and I think that'd be a good stopgap. The main thing we have to do is build the lines and build the facilities, because if we don't do that, if we wait for that, if we wait for everybody to get in line and down to us, we're then 2 years, that many more years behind, 2 years behind that process.
So is that the next thing for the Fluvanna, to make that commitment to build those lines?
I believe it is. The Board of Supervisors, I believe, will be discussing that here shortly, and I think that they will be. We are looking at some other options at the request of one of our supervisors, just to make sure that we are on the right track and going in the right direction. And so once those are done, I believe that we'll be moving forward with a proposal from the staff, and then having the board make a commitment to that.
All right. Speaking of the Zion Crossroads area, we've changed the district a little bit, or that we're looking at?
We haven't quite changed it yet. The Planning Commission has looked at moving the area, the development area for Zion Crossroads a little further west, and kind of shifting it west, not necessarily keeping the expansion east. We don't have a lot in the eastern part that would be suitable necessarily for development, whereas further west we would. And that kind of ties into what's happening at Pantops, and that movement eastward towards our county. In fact, we've been working with VDOT and with actually Senator Reeves who lives in Spotsylvania, but has part of his district is Pantops area.
Oh, gosh.
And so he is pushing to actually expand 250 into a 4-lane within the next maybe 10 or 11 years. And so we're continuing and working with that effort with him as well, so that we can, if we start developing Zion Crossroads area, we're going to need more capacity, and that's another for traffic and that kind of thing. So we don't congest that area.
Yeah, well, I'm sure we're certainly hoping that some development takes place before 10 or 11 years.
We are, but I think that the traffic counts that are on there are probably minimal right now. And if we were to get a larger facility, say like a 300-job facility of some sort, anchor, then we would have to start looking at that. What we're trying to do is get VDOT to at least take a look at what we're trying to accomplish in the area, and then make sure that they are on board and moving with us instead of them reacting to development where they have done in the past, like on places like Route 3 and up in Stafford off of Route 17. They reacted to those things, and then they didn't have the room to actually take care of the capacity. We're trying to get ahead of that game.
Okay. Well, meanwhile, we've been engaging in what you refer to as some internal marketing projects, basically. And these are kind of promotional. One, basically to harness some of the business interests and the general interest here within the county, and two, to act for visibility, I would assume.
Yeah, there are a couple of things that we've done. Earlier last year, we put together a piece. It talks about infrastructure and economic development. It's a 4-page fold piece, and it just gives citizens the opportunity to see some of the questions and answers that we get, and to provide those answers to them so they understand what we're trying to accomplish and why we're trying to do it a certain way. And that's still something that's ongoing. We hand those out periodically at different events, and we keep them, a stack of them for sure, every office that we can keep them in. Now, just recently we had the I Love Fluvanna campaign. Yeah. And we had the Business Promo Challenge, and that was really a lot of fun. We had in the I Love Fluvanna campaign, we partnered with the schools, and we had many of the children talk about what they loved about Fluvanna, and we got a lot of interesting and really insightful things back. I think my favorite one was it was a class that did a scene from what we see out of our window from the bus. And those kids really did a great job on that. I was real impressed with the quality of things. Part of that is we get some marketing materials that we can use for tourism and other things from that one. And then the Business Promo Challenge, we actually asked for people to put together a film and why a business should come to Fluvanna, and we gave them some parameters. We had two gentlemen that put together a really good video that won the overall, and we're working with them now to kind of revamp some of the things we wanted to see. We'll probably utilize that more for internal things, just to show folks that may come in, hey, these are some of the creative people that we have in our county. This is the kind of stuff we do. And then from that, one of the judges was that judged that actually has committed to doing a professional video so that we can do recruitment videos. So we've got a lot of great things that came out of that whole promotion, and it's under a bigger umbrella called Market Fluvanna. And that campaign is ongoing. That'll continue for the next 3 or 5 years. And the whole idea is get people thinking about what's great about Fluvanna and how you can be a part of Fluvanna and helping us develop our business community as well.
Oh, that sounds very good. That sounds very hopeful.
Yes.
And you refer to something called Community Investment Collaborative, a very imposing name, and apparently it involves a joint effort between Fluvanna and Louisa counties. What's this all about?
Well, actually, it's the CIC, as we call it, is Fluvanna funded a portion for Fluvanna citizens. What it does is it's a training program for people that want to become entrepreneurs and start their own business. And it's I think it's a 17 or 18-week course. There's a small tuition fee, but at the end of that, you also have mentors and other people from business areas teach courses on how to move through your business process. And what's happening now is they've expanded that program. You don't have to go to Charlottesville this time around. They're going to have it somewhere between. They're trying to find a location that people from Louisa and Fluvanna can come, and it'd just be those two groups working in this workshop. And the whole idea is that at the end of this, that we can do small loans to fund some of these small startups. And of course they're required to pay that back to CIC. About 2 years ago, the Board of Supervisors funded about $35,000 for loans, and those should be circulating and recirculating so that they shouldn't have to need any more funding for several years.
Do they use the resources available in any way of SCORE, the group of retired executives that basically are available on a free basis to advise people on, gosh, anything from finance to marketing, public relations, et cetera, et cetera?
Yes, they work in concert with SCORE and several other workforce development agencies in the area. They're, like I said, it's a small fee. I think it's more for materials than anything to cover the cost of materials that they have. But yeah, they utilize all those different resources and people to come and speak. And then they have mentors that actually mentor the new business folks as they move through and get their bank loans and start their businesses.
Yeah.
So I think we have had about 6 people go through the program since it started. And one was a gentleman here in the lake, I believe, that was trying to expand his business, wasn't sure how that would work. And then another young lady that actually works in the 4-H office, she's still looking to do her startup, but she's trying to do a very large entertainment facility for children.
Oh, okay.
And then we had one young man that I think he's doing very well. He started his own catering service.
Hey, all right. Well, certainly every little bit helps. I'm sure of that.
Well, we're definitely proud of our entrepreneurs here. So
yeah. And speaking of consortiums and collaboratives and the like, last time you were here, you referred to the consortium of basically the wine trail with other counties here in Virginia taking advantage of wineries and the like to attract tourists. What's developing there?
Well, we had a little hiccup with that because we were working with Louisa and Orange County, and of course we lost our barbecue.
Yes,
place.
It was going to be what was it going to be? Wine and
it was the wine trail and barbecue crawl.
Oh, barbecue crawl. Okay. Yeah. Well. Okay.
You can't have barbecue.
Left us out of that, and we have one winery.
Yes.
So.
Sure. But what we've done is, and we've joined. There's a couple things. There's an expansion of the Monticello viticultural area, and that's going on. We are part of, and we're trying to make that happen. That viticultural area actually is where grapes are grown, and you can put that moniker on there if you're growing grapes in that area. That's being headed up by the Extension Office, and a couple of the wineries. Well, one of the one winery that's here. There's also another startup winery that's coming soon. To Fluvanna County, but we're trying to entice grape growers and wineries. So we felt that was an opportunity there. Monticello viticulture area needs more people in their viticulture area growing grapes, so that because there's a shortage, and you have to have a percentage of homegrown grapes, so to speak, in order to put a moniker like that. And it's a prestigious moniker. We have to go to the Congress and get them to approve it and other things. So. It's kind of a lengthy process, but we think it's well worth it and will help our agricultural sector.
Oh, well, that's neat.
But now we have moved on.
Oh, we've moved on. All right.
To some other things. We started with the Piedmont, Virginia's America's Wine Country Group. That was started by Fauquier County. Since then, Loudoun and Fauquier and a myriad of other counties from that area all the way down to us have joined it, including Louisa, Orange, Greene County. And that particular item will allow us to reach people not only in those counties that are part of the Piedmont area for events like our wine event, or in our barbecue bands and brew events that's put on by different Old Farm Day. Those types of events can go on that platform, and it'll reach a larger number of people, because this is also reaching out to international travelers that are coming to Virginia and D.C. area. So we're hoping that that'll give us a broader base for tourism to the area, especially our event tourism.
Yeah, and this ties, well, the mentioned historical aspect to it, and the tie-ins with Monticello and Montpelier, and of course now we have the restored, what used to be known as the Hayden House, which now I guess is the Pleasant Grove House.
That's correct.
That is now dedicated and open, and that's that tie-in with Monticello and Montpelier that you were talking about?
Yes, I believe that when we, what we're working on now in my group in community development is a map that would basically show all the different places where you can go, like Monticello, Montpelier, and then some of the things in between there, and then of course Pleasant Grove House. We're trying to tie those together. We've already had conversations with Monticello about tying some dual marketing in there, and also with we're going to be working with Montpelier here shortly. I've talked to their tourism director in Orange, and tie some of those things together. People that are going to Monticello are probably also going to Montpelier, and why shouldn't they stop on their way at the Pleasant Grove House and enjoy that on their trip through history? So,
and the Old Stone Jail.
Oh, and the Old Stone Jail, absolutely, absolutely. So we're going to try to put some of our historical monikers in that, and tie them to this end and this end, and see if we can't get some better traffic flow for us here.
Yeah. Okay. Where else are we prospecting?
Could you elaborate a little more?
Well, in terms of what other areas, what other kinds of business perhaps are we trying to enlist that we think would be compatible and interested with the county such as we have it?
Well, you know, we look a lot at technology. We have a company, I think I mentioned this last time, that would consider putting a geriatric hospital here. So some of those types of things are what we're looking at. We've recruited some defense industry folks. They're looking in our direction for sure. Probably one big company that may be coming here soon that is actually seeking governor opportunity fund monies. Can't go into too much detail as to what they're doing, but with that governor fund opportunities, that's several $1 million that would go into a company, and there's some tails that go along with that. They have to hire a certain number of people at a certain wage level and what have you. This particular company would be hiring people from management all the way down to skilled and semi-skilled labor, and even unskilled labor type jobs. So it ranges the myriad of different things, and they're looking at probably creating over 5 years between 400 and 500 new jobs here in the county.
Well, boy, that would be a coup.
Yes.
Is that company and others you're looking at, again, contingent on water and sewer?
That particular company probably isn't contingent on water and sewer, because just in the nature of what they're doing. But it's definitely the others I've talked about, the technology companies and that we're trying to recruit, and some of the defense companies, and even some light manufacturing type things. But of course, the hospital would definitely need water.
Yeah, certainly.
And I'd imagine that would come with a contingent of different types of doctors' offices and offices.
That's the one thing that would lead to all kinds of things: radiology, centers and all the ancillary features that are necessary to keep something like that going.
Yeah, and I'd imagine that Louisa County, we work pretty closely with their economic development because we're right next door and we're trying to work the same areas. Not that we have an agreement, but we do talk a lot about what we're trying to do and what they're trying to do there is completely different. Some of that would tie in, but with the hospital, some of that would tie in with some of their medical things that they already have there and would certainly help them as well. So we get a lot of support in that direction from Andy Wade over at Louisa County, and we're thankful for that because now we're not, a lot of times sometimes there's a friction, and we don't have that friction between economic developers in our region where we all try to help each other when we can.
Yeah. Well, as things have developed, University of Virginia Medical Center has, of course, broadened that professional office up there at Zion Crossroads, basically, and whole radiology, even the kidney the dialysis treatment up there. So that, I mean, that's the sort of thing that I gather just does grow once there's some impetus and once opening gambits are made. There was a fascinating article last October about this solar thermal demonstration project, which this company hoped to bring into what we now euphemistically call the convenience center down on Route 6.
That is correct. This company is a nonprofit startup, and they were looking for an area to test this new technology. Basically, it's an open dished type of solar. It's different than solar panels. It's not solar panels. It's utilized with lightweight materials, so it can be scrunched down for portable use and then expanded for large projects, and their goal is to be on the grid, of not just put it on houses or whatever. They want to be on the grid and be an actual supplier of energy for electric. So by utilizing this new method, if it works properly, we could probably see this up and coming in the next few years. They are still looking for funding. They've applied for a number of grants. They need about $100,000 to continue the testing and do the actual facility that they want to do down there. It's not going to be a big facility, but their goal at the end of it is to actually run our entire convenience center electric off of that facility for a day.
Yeah, I'll be darned.
So, and of course the test data and things like that. We're working with Virginia Power. We've made some contacts with them on maybe getting some help. Keeping in mind that these guys are not just looking to profit, they're going to actually give away the technology to the power companies if they wish. At least the initial diagrams and drawings and data and all those types of things. They're not going to hold that and say, okay, we're going to just sell this to you. No, they're going to actually give that away to them, and in hopes that they get some reciprocal funding for that. So.
I was saying that. Of course, it's up to the power company what they're going to do with it. They view that as a competing mechanism.
No, I believe that in fact, in the conversation we've had, because of the posture that Senman Energy and RECS has taken with this facility or with this product, they don't feel threatened at all. They feel like it's an opportunity for them too. So that's a fantastic win-win for everybody.
It in itself, it would not mean a huge amount of employment or anything for Fluvanna,
No.
but it's certainly just, I guess, in terms of what one might refer to as favorable publicity for the county or the installation being there.
Well, if it is successful, we could possibly see one of these facilities in our county. Senman Energy has kind of committed that, hey, the first facility ought to go in Fluvanna if it's successful, because we have helped them with a location that they would have had to pay for.
Yeah.
And now they have a, for lack of a better term, free area that's secure. That was important to them, and that allows them to do their work and not really be disturbed and not have to worry about it being destroyed or take, because it's lightweight stuff. It's not, and they have to put up greenhouses around the facilities themselves to keep from wind damage and other damage from happening.
All right.
So it's going to be a neat thing. If it works, it'll create steam in a pipe and turn a Tesla turbine that turns a generator. Very little noise, very little problems with that, and if it works, it'll be a revolution.
Oh, well, several people would say we'd love to have a revolution here in Flint. Well, we won't go into that.
Not that kind of revolution.
No, okay, not that kind of revolution. All right. You comment you had a visit recently from the Virginia Secretary of Commerce and Trade last summer. What was he up to?
Well, I had the opportunity I was in Fredericksburg at a leadership class or conference that was put on by Herschel Fleischer. And actually the guy that happens to be my lawyer that invited me to this leadership conference is friends with the Secretary of Commerce and Trade. So I got to meet him for the first time at that event, and we got to be pretty fast friends, at least professionally, because both of them went to Hampton City, and of course I went to Bridgewater College, and of course we had to tease them about, I was teasing them about football and the school, and they were teasing back. By the way, Bridgewater beat Hampton City in football this year, so
I see.
And I had to tell the secretary that he was, but I'm digressing a little bit. The point being was that we were able to make contact with them. We spoke to them about coming out to Fluvanna and talk about the problems and issues that we have as far as trying to attract business and those types of things. The secretary and the governor have been watching diligently as sequestration has been going on. And because a third of our economy in Virginia is based off of defense.
Certainly.
So that's a concern for them. Virginia's not seeing the growth that other communities are, and so we had to change that conversation. We felt that we should be part of that conversation because we're up and coming. We're the next location where businesses are going to probably be. They're not going to center around Washington, D.C., and we'd like to pick some of those guys up that are looking to maybe export things to across the pond or to other countries in Asia and that kind of thing. So, how do we become more a viable location for people? That was basically the conversation we had with the secretary. He actually invited us back up for a follow-up in Richmond, which we went to, and gave us some good advice and some good contacts and help. He had a cadre of different people from different departments tell us how they could help us and who to contact for things as broad as infrastructure and regulation and possible funding opportunities and things like that. So we've been very lucky to have the secretary take a special interest in Fluvanna County and say, we're going to help you and we want you to thrive. And
certainly that's neat at that level. It's certainly a nice inroad to make, basically. And speaking of infrastructure, aside from sewer and water, what kind of infrastructure are we going to have to provide or develop for companies to say, okay, I'll really consider you?
In the Zion Crossroads area, thankfully, we are pretty well set with fiber optic.
Oh, that's interesting. That's good. Yeah.
So we have redundancy in that area. So we're not pigeonholed in that capacity. I believe that in the future, I mentioned earlier the Route 250 corridor is probably going to need to be expanded. I think those are some of the limitations we have in the long term if they're not remedied. But as far as the main thing being water and sewer, of course, but I believe we have some redundancies through our fiber optic opportunities. So that shouldn't be a problem for technology companies and things like that. We even have natural gas that runs up in that area, and we actually have an area where we can connect it's not active, but we'd have to do some stuff. But if we really had a company that needed natural gas, we have that opportunity for them as well.
Okay, great. That's great. Last time you were here, I believe you also mentioned looking at entertainment possibilities. Talk about a platform or an area for major entertainment events that, granted, would not be necessarily year-round, but they would be sort of big events that could, again, bring a fair amount of business to the county.
We've had to adjust that a little bit.
All right.
Not that it's that it's off the table. We had a large company, or a company that was looking for a large venue, and they actually went to look at Pleasant Grove area.
Yeah.
They critiqued that area for us, and they basically gave us the ideas of what we could possibly do there. And we're still working with them. They found another location temporarily that they're happy with. We still keep in contact with them, but they wanted to do the All Good Music Festival here,
yeah.
which would have been about 25,000 people. I don't know if we're ready for it yet or not, but that's okay. If we find them a good piece of property that they can deal with, then you know, we'll work with them. But there's, like I said, they critiqued that property as to what kind of venues could come there. And one of the things they said, that if they want to do a musical venue, probably 5,000 is our maximum at that location, and that's a good chunk of people.
Yeah,
you know,
sure.
5,000 to 7,000, he said, is a good chunk of people. Yeah. And we have built the first level of the stage at Pleasant Grove, so we're starting in that direction right now. So.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's very good. People look at, you know, they think of, well, we probably could use some more retail in some places, and yet, but there just are very practical limitations. Retail, I gather the phrase is, it depends on a sufficient number of rooftops. Either you have the homes there or you don't, and we have to admit that even here in Lake Monticello, and you know, right outside the gate, if you want to call Jefferson Plaza, there are a number of vacant retail spaces, including some of them have been vacant for some years now. So it's just, and the other sections of the county, of course, are not zoned for heavy residential development like that.
No.
Nor do they necessarily have, again, water that would a retail business might require.
That's correct. So some of the, I think a lot of people think that the only economic development out there is retail. And I think you saw that fallacy happen in the 90s and early 2000s, and then everything broke, you know, kind of went bust. You see that particularly up in near Northern Virginia and Spotsylvania, Stafford County, you know, those guys up there. But let's go back to the process here. We feel that we can become an employment center of sorts. We also feel that in the Zion Crossroads plan that we put together not too long ago, that there's a possibility of something like look like an Oyster Point, which is a new development that has a business sector and then maybe some multifamily housing on top of some of the retail centers there.
Oh, wow.
So we can't do that as a county. We can't make that happen. But what we can do is possibly try to recruit commercial developers, not residential developers. That's not our aim. But commercial developers that can bring us some of those anchors, that can work the properties and do those types of things. The other thing that we're doing is we're trying to educate landowners in that area on what they need to do to have their site ready. We've the board funded 2 site readiness studies in my budget last year, or this fiscal year. We have one person that's taking advantage of that, and if the budget passes next year, I'll have 2 more that are in that line item that I can help 2 landowners become site ready, or at least look at what they need to do to become site ready. We had one last year that the Central Virginia Economic Development Partnership paid for, and that was a successful look at what that gentleman needed to do, and he was very grateful to have that. So we're trying to provide those tools for people so they know what to expect, what they need to do, so that we can recruit more efficiently.
Yeah. Well, that's a really very interesting. Again, looking forward, and just looking down at the more southerly and western end of the county, and the Fork Union and towards Scottsville just really hasn't developed much at all over the years, has it? It's just not. Just not close enough, I guess, maybe to major highways.
Well,
you got Route 6, but
we feel that our first advantage in putting in economic development is Zion Crossroads, just for those reasons, because of access to 64, access to 250, and even access to 15 and 6. If you need alternative routes. That's one of the things that we do pride ourselves on, that we do have alternative routes to get you to Richmond and other places. Yeah. So we utilize that in recruitment, but most people want that interstate access, and that's fine. The other thing I think we try to recruit on with our county is our location. There are a lot of counties out there say we have a great location. We do have a great location. We are we can get to anywhere in the Commonwealth of Virginia in less than 2 hours, and we have access to probably 40% to 50% of the entire U.S. population within 500-600 miles of us. So that's a pretty big deal, I think.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So where from here? What are you going to be doing next week?
You know, the company I talked about earlier, we've been working with them on various things, helping them with their new business plan for this facility that they may be bringing in. We've been working with, like I said, we're going to be doing some more internal marketing type things. Mainly getting out there and getting our name out there has been a primary focus. Obviously, we got the Secretary of Commerce and Trade on our side now. We had that before, but for them to take that interest in us, Virginia Economic Development Partnership, which is the economic development arm for the state, has been more helpful to us in recruitments. We have some things out there. They're sending us more recruitments. We have a couple of buildings out there that might work for some of these things, so we're trying to do some of that and encourage them to send more our way. I go to a lot of oddball stuff, believe it or not. I've gone to a couple of defense classes that was put on by the Virginia Economic Development Partnership, showing guys how they can, if they're in defense, how they can turn that around and work with the international side of things in the world. And in doing that, we've generated some interesting leads for us of people that want to come and look at Fluvanna. So that's mainly what my main job is as far as economic development, is generating more leads. We have a lot of people that want to come. I think if we get infrastructure here and we can keep our arms around those people, they're going to be here. So
well, let's hope for that, because that certainly seems to be the key. We appreciate a very good look at this. We're going to. We wish you good luck with it. We'll keep in touch. Try not to let 2 years and 4 months go before having you back again to keep on top of this, because to the extent that people in their own self-interest, frankly, their own pocketbooks, because most I know the supervisors are fixing to set the tax rate right shortly again, and we probably can expect more outcries of pain. So this is one way of perhaps relieving that pain, but we've got to do our part as a county to get that all in place. So we want to keep with it. So again, thank you very much, and we'll look to talk with you again. We have been talking with Bobby Popowitz, Fluvanna County's Director of Planning and Community Development. We remind you that you can keep up with our magnificent replay schedule on these programs. It's 4 times a day, and there is other Channel 977 programming involving schools, the high school, school board, that we have at different times. You can find all that out either via the Friday Flyer or through the website, fluvannavoice.org. So we also would like to remind you to tune in again next week at this time to good old Channel 977, when host Jay Brown will be discussing what it means to be a director with two present and one former member of the LMOA Board of Directors. That's next week at this time on Channel 977. So, until then, on behalf of the LMOA Broadcast Group, I'm Ron Kraus. We thank you very much for watching, and good day.